Hi and welcome to Carnegie and our interview with Maha Energy on the back of the transaction that was announced yesterday. I have with me Kjetil Solbraekke, who is CEO of the company, who's calling in from Brazil. Hi, Kjetil.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
I'm very good, thank you. And very exciting news yesterday. So you announced that you bought 5% of 3R Petroleum, and you've also sent an open letter to the board of 3R. And let's go through all these points one by one to try to kind of explain this transaction which can seem a bit complicated. If we start out by just maybe explaining the reasons for buying shares in a listed company instead of buying assets.
Well, I think everything we do is looking at how to create more value for our shareholders. And when we looked at the portfolio of fields that we now are very familiar with, based on the background of what we participated in creating 3R, we simply saw that this is the cheapest barrels that you can get hold of in the market with that kind of knowledge that we have. So we think that either we would do this or somebody else would probably do the same thing. So it was more about, do it while you have the chance when you see this is there, or you lose it for somebody else, most likely. So we simply think that this is a good business. These are cheaper barrels. We have very confident on the portfolio in 3R. And we think the idea of this merger, as we will talk more about, makes total sense to the market. And that was the easy answer. That's why we did it.
And you make a proposal to the board in an open letter. And if we just sum this up to kind of frame the rest of the discussion, what are you proposing?
So what we are basically looking at are two companies that has recently bought a lot of assets from Petrobras. And in that competition, basically, you had to, there was no portfolio plan behind the acquisitions. You acquired, and then you realized what you were winning afterwards. And so I think it's very obvious that a consolidation period would have to come after all these acquisitions have been done with Petrobras. So when we look at this now, we see these are two companies. They have excellent assets. There is a huge agenda to increase the production in both companies. And it simply makes a lot of sense for those companies to focus on getting more oil out of the ground than to fight for getting access to the same infrastructure that they are currently sharing in some of these areas. So this is, make sure that you take out the synergies early enough so that the combined company can really look at how to increase the production even further.
Mm-hmm. And you're suggesting a carve-out of the offshore assets. Let's maybe start there. Why separate the offshore and the onshore assets in the first place?
I think for me, this was pretty obvious in the first place. These are two very different businesses. Take an example of Exxon. They are in shale, one of the big players in shale, and they always organize that as a separate company even from the rest of the business that they are doing, because it's distinctively so different that it's very difficult to manage such assets under the same management. I wouldn't say it's impossible. So I'm not saying that things were happening here that was completely without any sense at all. I just think it's very different to plan for execute projects onshore than it is offshore, because of the cost involved. So when you're having a drilling rig in the offshore, it's a rig that costs you from $500,000 to $1 million per day, and you better make sure that you use it very efficiently every day. So you have to make a very, very good plan to execute on these things. On the onshore, you can spend a little bit less money on the planning of projects, simply because if you run into an unexpected problem, you can move the rig very easily to the next location and you do some work that you plan there anyway. So it's a totally different mindset on how to run and how to become efficient. So while in the offshore, planning is an essential part of being efficient. But in onshore, it's almost the opposite way around. You can actually, the thing there is really to make sure that people are every day running out to fix a problem that occurs on the day. So it's very different mindset, and I think it's very, very challenging to run both these two things in parallel. So I think that when you have two distinct different challenges like this, I think that it makes a lot of sense to have a very focused management of the onshore assets, where you have to chase barrels every day to motivate people to run out, fix problems as soon as you can. And you're talking about 20 barrels per day in one well, 20 barrels in another 4 barrels in some wells. In the offshore, you're looking at trying to improve, getting the right well in place, and it might improve the production with 5,000 barrels. So these are very, very different businesses. And I think in the long run, they benefit from being managed as two separate entities.
And we started out by talking a little bit about consolidation, or consolidation was being mentioned in the beginning. And you're also proposing a merger here with PetroReconcavo. What is the rationale for that merger? And is it strategic as well, or is it all about the synergies that you think you can get through this merger?
Well, I think the synergies are very strategic, to put it that way. I think that's a great combination. I think that, of course, you might say the strategic synergy here is that you get a joint management for onshore, for the Potiguar and for Bahia and anything else they would sit on, that could now only focus upon how to increase the production. And we believe there is a huge potential for increasing production in at least what we see in 3R. And we have good reason to believe that it's the same in PetroReconcavo. We are much more familiar with the fields in 3R than we are in PetroReconcavo. But they come from the same origin, come from Petrobras, and a lot of the same rationale was the case with Petrobras, and we also have very confidence in PetroReconcavo's ability to look at what was a good investment for them. And we, of course, participate in some of these lay loans, so some of these auctions. So we also are familiar with the content of some of the fields in PetroReconcavo. So, but yes, I think it's about synergies, but it's also about the long-term strategic potential for developing this into becoming by far the largest onshore company in Brazil, I think in Latin America. And it will be a very efficient, focused onshore company with tremendous growth opportunities just embedded in what they have. And of course, it's much easier for them also to look at other potential growth opportunities.
And if we talk a little bit about the synergies, can you just explain a little bit about where they're coming from and just give us some color on the synergies? I know it's early days, but something you can give us on that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of obvious when you look at where they are. They are both companies have huge positions in both Potiguar and the Bahia, and the fields are next to each other. So instead of having, two companies, two structures, basically running very similar operations next to each other, you can simplify this a lot. And I think we already saw that when Maha sold the T and Tartaruga assets to PetroReconcavo last year. We saw that, we were an efficient operator, had low costs and so on. But, that deal made a lot of sense because they could basically take over these assets and run it with the existing organization very, very efficiently. So they could drive down their lifting costs to a level that would be impossible. So I think this is about reducing the lifting cost in the operations, have a more efficient and lean management of the two portfolios. And I also think, of course, you get huge benefit out of the combined balance sheet. So this company will be very healthy financed and will be ready to make all the necessary investments in order to increase the production as according to the expectations and according to the potential, and also probably to make other acquisitions and to further strengthen the company in the future.
And you've already set up a timeline for the merger. And I assume you were not able to have any contacts ahead of the deal, but has there been any feedback from any of the parties afterwards?
Yes, but very on a kind of informal basis. When this was announced, the reaction I have had from both shareholders in 3R and also management in PetroReconcavo was very positive. Of course, there are some surprises. You know, we didn't know when you start thinking about this and all these kind of natural questions that comes up. But very positive. I think these are thoughts that has been thought already. I think the only thing we are doing is anticipating something that could probably have happened anyway. But now I think it will happen sooner. And I think we have pointed out the direction that seems to be appreciated by shareholders of several companies. I think also on the PetroReconcavo side, I think they are also, happy to see this, understand the rationale and so on. So, and of course, ultimately, we saw the market reaction yesterday, and they said that market is never wrong. I'm a personal believer that you have to do what you believe in yourself, and not necessarily put your faith into what the market says. But of course, in this sense, I think the market gave a very positive feedback to what we were suggesting, and that probably gives you an idea that this is mostly welcome in at least by the shareholders in both companies. So yeah, I think that's it.
And let's say that this happens, you will get the merger between the two of them, and the carve-out will happen, and then what will be left is the offshore assets. That will be the remainder of the 3R. Any thoughts on that, on the offshore assets?
Yes, but let me first correct you on the phrase there. I think we are not really foreseeing any merger. I think this is a business combination, sort of for practical purposes, not the most important thing, but for legal purposes. I think that's how we want to phrase it. So it's a business combination where PetroReconcavo, we recommend that they take over the onshore assets, and then we remain, and 3R Offshore remains as 3R. Continue to be a listed company with the management we have there. We are already part of 3R Offshore. We have a 50% stake in 3R Offshore, and we see great opportunities to also look at M&As, business combinations, consolidations within this area. So, but right now our focus is to make sure that the first step is taken, gain support for the business combination of PetroReconcavo and 3R Onshore, and then pursue these other opportunities that we think they are quite obvious. I think there are lots of companies offshore also with more or less single assets, and something that you don't see many places lasting for very long. So, so I think we just push the button for something that will come.
Mm-hmm. And I guess this transaction also maybe change things a little bit, or not change things, but if you look at the characteristics of the company are quite different now from what they would have been if you would have gone out and you had bought an asset, for instance. So tell us a little bit, how should we look upon Maha going forward? What are your own thoughts about the company and what Maha is?
Yeah, I think we have to, I think, be honest about ourselves. That probably you should look upon us as a normal kind of E&P company, as such, with the ambitions to have organic growth and do exploration and increase production with may become a 50,000 barrel company or something like that. I think we are much more of a unit to get driven by the two main shareholders, DBO and Starboard, which is a business development. I mean, we are basically looking at how we can create more value for our shareholders and ourselves as major shareholders. And when we see those opportunities come up, we have now again proven that we're able to turn around very quickly and act upon them. And I think we're going to continue like that. I think we see, when we see and if we see great opportunities for the remaining part of 3R, I think we'll pursue that. And I think we can be a driving force in the consolidation. We are also, I should mention that also now, we are continuing to be very enthusiastic about our opportunities in Venezuela. We are continuing our negotiations on several opportunities in Venezuela. And we think this is only strengthening our position towards Venezuela. So it's not like we're going to do less of Venezuela. I think we are just very enthusiastic about this being a part of the route, let me say it that way, towards also looking at more business in Venezuela. So again, we're not a traditional E&P company wanting to be 50,000 barrels, 100,000 barrels per day. We are focused upon developing a business, creating value for the shareholders by doing the right things in the market. And that is, in this case now, I think it was a very good thing to buy into 3R at the fantastic valuation. I think it makes sense what we propose. And I think sometimes this is not so unusual. We have other actors. You are familiar with Krista Ardell in Sweden, of course. This is not so unusual practice that you have a shareholder that see a rationale for doing rationalizations. And they take a position try to take a position in the board and execute on this. So it's happened before. We do it in the oil and gas sector, which perhaps hasn't been that usual. And I think it's a very good approach. I think it helps moving obvious things a bit faster, and that's our ambition.
Kjetil, thank you very much for coming here to talk to us. Very exciting. Really looking forward to see how this is going to develop, and lots of other things to dig into for future conversations. So thank you very much for today.
Thank you. Have a good day.